Apple just shook up its iPad lineup for 2020. The latest additions to Apple's iPad include the 2028 Gen 10.2-inch iPad and the 4th Gen 10.9-inch iPad Air. Now, for this video, I will compare both the 2020 models of iPad Air, which is the 10.9-inch model, and the iPad Pro, the 11-inch model. Before I dive in, if you guys are new to this channel, then please do consider subscribing to Logan the Tech Guy YouTube channel. I make tech comparison videos here, and sometimes I will do in an infographical way and sometimes I will do in voiceover like this one. I also do tech reviews and sometimes I explore the science and engineering topics too. So yeah, hit the little red subscribe button and help us to achieve the new goal of reaching the 100,000 subscribers mark. It's a huge goal, but with your help, we can do this. Let's dive in. Now, let's start with the pricing of both of these iPads. The new iPad Air comes at $599 USD for its base variant of 64GB with Wi-Fi, while the base variant of the iPad Pro 2020 comes at $799 USD. You will know why it's expensive in the iPad Pro later on in this video. For the weight, the Apple iPad Air comes at 1 pound and the Apple iPad Pro comes at 1.04 pounds. There's nothing much of a difference here on paper, and I'm pretty sure if you handheld both of these laptops, you pretty much can't differentiate or notice the weight difference. Is there any noticeable physical differences in both of these iPad? Well, given the new iPad Air now has the same kind of flat edge design as the iPad Pro, there's no practical difference in the hardware. You do think twice before swapping cases between them, but for putting in a bag or carrying around, they are effectively the same. For the display resolution, the Apple iPad Air comes with a 2360 by 1640 pixel resolution, while the iPad Pro comes with a 2388 by 1668 pixel resolution. Both iPads come with the same pixel density of 264 pixels per inch. Although the screens are so close in display size and also the display resolution of both of these iPad, the iPad Pro's display is significantly brighter. Its maximum brightness is at 600 nits compared to the 500 of the iPad Air. One feature that will not be in the new iPad Air is the ProMotion. This feature is introduced in the 2017 model of the iPad Pro, which is arguably what makes this device feel more responsive than any other iPad. With ProMotion, the iPad Pro intelligently changes the refresh rate of the screen, the speed at which the display is updated. These iPad Pro models can drive the screen at 120Hz, but it drains the battery. So rather than driving the entire display at top speed, the iPad Pro assesses where that speed will give you most benefit. If you're drawing on it with the Apple Pencil, then the area right under your fingers will refresh at 120Hz, but the app's unchanging tool palette will not. Both the display of the iPad Air and the iPad Pro have the same display characteristics such as True Tone display, fingerprint resistant of oleophobic coating, fully laminated display, anti-reflective coating, 1.8% reflectivity, and an LED backlit multi-touch display with IPS technology. The one visible exception to these devices having the same design is when you see the rear cameras. The new iPad Air 4 has a greatly improved camera, but is still only one with 12 megapixel f1.8 aperture lens, while the 11-inch iPad Pro camera bump on the rear houses a 12 megapixel f1.8 wide lens, 10 megapixel f2.4 ultra wide lens, and a LiDAR sensor. While there may not exactly be mainstream users for that just yet, LiDAR is going to help with Apple AR. For the video recording, the 10.9-inch Apple iPad Air records at 4K at 24, 30 or 60 frames per second. It also has a 1080p slow-mo at 120 or 240 frames per second, while the video recording of the iPad Pro records at 4K at 24, 30 or 60 frames per second at wide angle and also 60 frames per second at ultra-wide angle. For the front-facing camera, the Apple iPad Air has a 7 megapixel lens while it records at 1080p video, and the iPad Pro comes with a 7 megapixel true depth lens and it records at 1080p video. The slow motion video supports for 1080p at 120 frames or 240 frames, and the time-lapse video has a stabilization in it. It has a cinematic video stabilization at 1080p and 720p. It has a continuously autofocus video. It has a noise reduction. It can take 8 megapixel still photos while recording 4K video. It can do a playback zoom. It can do video geotagging, and the video formats capture at HEVC and also H.264. For the front-facing cameras, both the iPad Pro and the iPad Air can record 1080p HD videos at 60 frames per second with wide color capture for photos and live photos. It has a smart HDR, retina flash, backside illumination sensor, auto image stabilization, burst mode, exposure control and also timer mode. So now it's already official that the iPad Air has a new A14 Bionic processor, and when you compare it to the 11-inch iPad Pro's A12Z Bionic chip, the power is more towards the new iPad Air. Well, if you ask me which processor is better, the A14 Bionic or the A12Z, I will side towards the A14. But until someone managed to run through benchmark tests, and even then performance can be subjective if the limits of the device are not pushed regularly. What seems fast to the average user may be annoyingly slow to someone editing 4K resolution video and layering effects daily. No doubt, soon after the iPad Air 4 ships, benchmark tests of its A14 will begin to show up, along with the comparisons to the A12Z in the iPad Pro. While that will quantify the power of the A14 more precisely, its real value to the shopper depends on their particular usage. In the end, both are very powerful processors, and Apple states that both are faster than most PC laptops. Perhaps that's enough to know for now. As you use the new iPad Air, beyond the performance, there's one more speed difference to consider. The 11-inch iPad Pro has Face ID, which is certainly more convenient and arguably faster than the Touch ID in the new iPad Air. Well, the Touch ID is there for the Apple iPad Air, but the speed difference would be much faster in the iPad Pro because of the Face ID. For the ports, both the iPad Pro and the iPad Air doesn't come with headphone jack, and it comes with USB-C of Apple's smart connector. There's no charging brick for the iPad Air, as Apple say it pays for a consultancy to explain why a mandatory standard charger will not help the environment. Both the iPad Air and the iPad Pro comes with Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5 and a nano SIM. For the compatibility, both the iPads are compatible with 2nd generation Apple Pencil, and it's also compatible with Magic Keyboard and also Smart Keyboard Folio. The iPad Air comes with 2 speakers, while the iPad Pro comes with 4 speakers. I'm not sure how the sound quality is going to be in the Apple iPad Air, but I'm pretty sure the iPad Pro will be sounding better because of the number of speakers. I might be wrong here, but let's see when the Apple iPad Air comes out. For the microphones, your video or the audio will be sounding better in the iPad Pro because of its 5 studio quality microphones for calls, video recording and audio recording, compared to a dual microphones for calls, video recording and audio recording in the iPad Air. An edge for the iPad Pro here. Both the iPad comes with 3-axis gyro, accelerometer, barometer and also ambient light sensor. For the battery life, Apple says the battery life of the iPad Air will go up to 10 hours of use over Wi-Fi and up to 9 hours of use over cellular, while the Apple iPad Pro, based on my testing, goes up to 10 hours of battery life when surfing the web or while watching a video, and it can be recharged over USB-C that comes in with 18-watt power adapter that ships with them. For the final verdict, Apple muddied the waters when it comes to the current iPad lineup. This isn't the first time that's happened, but in this case, it makes the iPad Air seems like a better option than the pricier iPad Pro 11-inch model for what we guess are the vast majority of users. There are still pro benefits that you don't get with the Air, such as the Pro Motion display, LiDAR sensor, additional speakers, and significantly larger storage capacity. Some of those features are more niche than others, but diehards might not want to do without. But ultimately, the iPad Air looks nearly identical to the iPad Pro, and it adds fresh color options and has faster and newer processor in a lower price. For the average tablet user who wants more than the standard iPad, the iPad Air seems like a better option than the iPad Pro. Well, this is only my thoughts, and it might change if I get my hands on the new Apple iPad Air. So what about you? Which one of these will you go for? The new iPad Air or the iPad Pro? Let me know in the comments below. And if you did find this video helpful, and if you want to see more from me, then hit the subscribe button below and tap on the bell icon. Help me reach 100,000 subscribers. It will always be appreciated, and check out my other tech comparison videos. I will catch you in the next video right here. All love and peace out.